guys, I'm Jacob with Dynomad Mobile Tuning. This is my 1987 BMW 325 IS.
With a 2JZ and an M4 DCT swap.
Now this car started out with a basic M20 turbo setup. In its last form, it had a stock 2.7 bottom end with an 885 head. It had a mild cam setup, a 280-274 from Beamer heads, dual valve springs, retainers, and heavy-duty rockers. Pretty basic. ARP head stud, stock gasket. On about 22 pounds of boost, we made 522 horsepower and about 500 foot-pounds of torque. That was through a 62, 66 journal bearing. It was a 10-year-old turbo I had on my last 2JZ E30, but that's a whole other story. So we used that turbo, ID1000s, Walbro 450, E85, pretty basic all-around setup. It was on MS3 Pro Evo, which we will still be using MS3 Pro Evo, the same exact one on this 2JZ build. That car has seen several different M20s in it. The first one was a 2.5 bottom end stock head. We windowed that block going up an on-ramp on about 30 pounds of boost, just having fun with it, out tuning one day, and apparently we reached the block's limits. These rods like to snap at about 430 to 450 foot-pounds if it's created early on in the power band. So we learned that pretty quick with running that much boost. It was probably making well over 500 to 550 horsepower, maybe even closer to 600, who knows. It was an absolute rocket for a little while until the rod slung out the block. The second motor we put in there was an unknown mileage 2.7. We didn't know the condition of it. It literally came out of a car that had been sitting for years. Had no idea what to expect when we threw it in there. That thing ended up breaking another rod, mainly because it stretched a rod bolt. From what we could tell, we were drifting in it on only 10 pounds of boost, maybe 300 something horsepower. It wasn't very much, and just banging off the limiter, and it decided to let the rod go on that one. It looked like the previous owner had maybe at some point done some work to it, who knows, and they reused the rod bolts because they stretched. And those are torque to yield bolts. They're one-time use. Looks like they just threw them in there. Probably would work for an NA car, not so much for boost. So we ended up finding another 2.7 bottom end, and this time it needed a piston, and so we took some pistons from another car and rings from another one and bearings from another one and a rod from a different one, and just kind of threw that bottom end together without any expectations of it living for very long. It was really just to kind of get it going and hold me over until I built a 2.9 liter M20 stroker, and it lasted a lot longer than we ever thought it would. Several drift events, 25 plus pounds of boost. Like I said, it made 520 on 21 pounds. It was just an absolute rocket. It would trap 126 to 128 miles an hour on a draggy with very little effort. It was busting a lot of ass around town. But I really wanted more power, and I kind of missed the 2JZ setup that I had in my old car. So we decided we were going to go ahead and move forward with the 2JZ swap, and I had collected the M4 DCT in an effort to mate the M20 to the M4 DCT transmission, which had been done a few times. You got all these vets driving by for some reason. So anyways, this M20, it wouldn't die. So, but we knew it was gonna die eventually. So we ended up building a forged 2.9 liter stroker, I can go into all the details if you want, but basically it was going to be a 700 to 800 horsepower bottom end, and hopefully last a good while. Ended up running into some issues with the 885 head. Local machine shop errors really left a bad taste in my mouth. They screwed one head up by when they welded the coolant jackets on the new head. They didn't let it cool between welds, and it ended up warping it beyond use. The other machine shop decided they were going to beat my rocker shafts in with a hammer, and broke both ends of the rocker shafts to where oil was coming out of it. And then when we tried to remove it, it wouldn't come out. So something along those lines ruined that head. Then I ordered another head from somebody, and it came in with scored cam bearings. So we just decided to completely scrap the M20 project. I really enjoyed the M20 days. It was very simple, but I just wanted to kind of get back to the 2JZs, which is what, you know, my car was always originally known for, my old red one. And I just missed that brute power and the reliability of the 2JZ. So had an old Aristo VVTi lying around the garage, and that I bought years ago, and so we decided to strip that thing down and swap everything over to that motor and then start on this build. In the meantime, we were already planning for the M4 DCT swap behind the M20, so we just sold some of those parts for the M20 and decided to go with the DCT swap to the 2JZ and collected all those parts for it. And that's what we're in the middle of doing. We've got the motor in on the mounts, we've got the transmission mated, we've got the trans tunnel cut out, because you cannot fit at least a 2JZ with the DCT transmission in there and have any kind of reasonable ground clearance without modifying the tunnel and raising the engine up. So that's what we did. I didn't want to sacrifice being low and having to raise my car up just to fit this transmission. So I'm a big proponent for style. I want to make sure my car looks good when it's sideways, and cars look dumb when they're 4x4. So sorry if you're a 4x4 drifter. It just doesn't look cool, man. It just is what it is. So anyways, that plays a role in it. Plus, with the way that it was, how low it was, we weren't going to get the right drive shaft angle out of it. So we really had to raise the front of the car up, the front of the engine up, and along with the transmission in order to obtain that drive shaft angle. Otherwise, we're going to be playing with diff angles, and I'd much rather leave the diff angle right where it's at. This is my first time vlogging and doing anything like this, so bear with me. I don't have all the equipment for, you know, GoPros and all that stuff to really do an elaborate video, so it's really going to be just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and bear with me. I'm no internet personality, but who knows, maybe it'll turn into something. We'll see. On to the next.